Velkommen til Moovy TV. I denne uge er der biografpremiere på Alejandro González Iñárritus' The Revenant, et autentisk historisk drama om pelsjægeren Hugh Glass, spillet af Leonardo DiCaprio, som jager de mænd, der begravede ham levende, efter at han med nød og næppe overlevede et brutalt bjørneangreb. The Revenant er netop blevet nomineret til hele 12 Oscars, og som det eneste danske medie har Moovy TV fået fat i en stribe interviews, både med filmens instruktør og filmens medvirkende, som vi har klippet sammen til et eksklusivt kig på skabelsen af en af årets mest ventede film.
Hugh Glass is, stuff of legend by, the American campfires. He's a real-life Paul Bunyan type of character, a man that survived extreme elements and was left to die by his hunting crew and buried alive and crawled through the entire American wilderness on his own through hundreds of miles through the dead of winter. To sort of seek revenge on the men that had done him wrong. So he's this sort of part of American folklore, but he was a real person, and these things really did happen. But I think more than anything, what Alejandro wanted to do was create poetry in that story, the poetry of what it means to have all the chips stacked against you, to have really very little chance at survival, and the sort of triumph of the human spirit, and what we can endure and what we go through, and what Hugh Glass realizes on that journey, and whether revenge is ultimately the thing that will quench his thirst at the end of the day.
In the surface, you can see a story of survival. It's an adventure of survival. Resilience, endurance, revenge, in some level. And I think all human beings, we have that revenge thing that is a trigger, is a motor to get us through difficult times. For me, what was very important was what kept him going. So behind the revenge, behind the surface of revenge, if it's possible that a certain spiritual dimension can come from such a extreme physical pain.
His process is very unique. Not many filmmakers do what he does. And a lot of it's trial and error. And a lot of it has to do with Chivo, who is a cinematographer, who's intrinsically a part of his process. And those two really immerse themselves in the material. There's a very extensive rehearsal period where all the actors get together and we sort of coordinate these very complex movements and shots.
It is a really tough challenge, to arrive on set and feel like you know how you're going to play something, and then, I can't stand up at that point, or I can't turn around in that instance, or I have to walk that slowly. It's all these things that you have to kind of build in and factor in and still feel as though you're not acting and you still believe yourself. That's been possibly the toughest thing.
I think what they quite uniquely achieve is, especially and in particular in this film, is this almost virtual reality where you really feel like you're out in the elements with these characters. You really feel immersed in their lives, but he's also able to, have that camera move all the way through the wilderness but stop at a very intimate moment with the character and explore that moment and then travel on. So you almost feel like some strange, delusional wanderer watching all this chaos ensue.
This film was shot in a very particular way. We traveled long hours to get there, long time for wardrobe and makeup. The light was very, very reduced. It was scarce. 3 o'clock, there was no light. So we have windows of 1 hour and a half to shoot very complex scenes with hundreds of extras or very difficult, intimate emotions in a very small amount window of light and time with very extreme weather conditions. And the way I approached this was with long takes, not many cuts, a very precise choreography, design months in advance, rehearse. So it was like a theater play that suddenly we knew that we have used 1 or 2 times to really do it live, and it will be forever. And so that combination of extreme preparation and almost subordinate to that, but at the same time to have just 1 or 2 chances to really perform that forever. What we will get by shooting just natural light will be the most close things that you can get to a 19th century painting, you know. So the only thing that we have seen about that world where photography didn't exist in the early 19th century is these beautiful paintings that we have seen of those landscapes, which has that light. And if Birdman was more music and jazz, this film has to do more with dreams and painting. And that's the way I conceive it, and that's the way I see this film. And I think natural light is what it gave you. It gave you a dream sense of being alive.
Certainly being in the locations certainly brings something out, because the reality of being there means that it is necessary to behave in a certain way when you're in the environment. When they say cross a river and maybe have a fight halfway across it, you just start crossing the river, you know? You don't know which way that's going to go. If somebody falls, that's in the scene now. If somebody can't carry something any longer, that's in the scene now. And that affects everything. And it means that once you go, you go. And you don't stop until somebody else calls cut. There hasn't been any of that, like, oh, I messed my lines, or oh, I tripped over, we should probably, you know. You just work with everything that you have around you. And that leads to a really very interesting work day. A lot of pressure building up to it. And then when it feels free, that's the days when you go home and you feel happy, you know. Leo seems to be doing an amazing job. I've seen him in every situation, from being in control to being at the mercy of everything. And it's always just been fascinating to watch, you know.
Leo is one of those actors that with the body can give you everything, and you can understand everything from his eyes. He performed with his eyes. And in this case, because there's a very few words that he delivers, everything he has to make you feel fear, cold, sadness, rage, and very many complex emotions simultaneously with his body language and only with his eyes. And that's a very difficult task. So I found it fascinating not only how he really get his character inside, but how physically he relate to that and transmit that, and that it was fascinating.